I always saw myself as a big dreamer. Instead of looking at long-term future goals, narrow it down a bit. So ask yourself, how do I want to feel today? Athletes, they'll get to like the top of the game and they've been training for this one moment. And after that, you find that a lot of them fall into a depression because it's like, okay, what now? My daughter, Jemima Rose, was diagnosed with a rare and quite serious heart condition. There's a reason for everything, whether we like the outcome or not, we have to know that it's being used for a greater purpose. Honestly speaking, there were times where it wasn't easy. When I'm thinking about it, it was probably a series of unfortunate experiences.
Welcome to another episode of House of Impact podcast. This is your host, Jani Kaur. And if you are listening or watching to this, it's because you want to break your old patterns, your limiting beliefs, and truly build the life of your dreams. If that is your goal, welcome, you are in the right place. Before we roll into this episode, please make sure that you subscribe because I know a lot of you are watching us every single week, and I want to say a massive thank you for that. But 80% of you are not subscribed to a channel. So it only takes a minute for you to go and subscribe. It's going to help us grow. It's going to help us get bigger and better guests for you to help you change your life. So please just take a second to subscribe to a channel. Let's roll with the episode. Hello guys, welcome back to another episode of House of Impact podcast. This episode is really dear to my heart. It's with a great friend of mine. And before we go into episode, I want to say that if you've been struggling with your identity, if you've been going through a lot of life transitions like marriage, having a kid, becoming a wife, going from single to married, and all of those things that happen in life, going from building the business that you really truly want to build, or just going for the career that you want, then this podcast is for you. If you've been struggling with not knowing who you truly are because of all these life transition changes, then this podcast is for you. And if you're struggling with having resilience and truly knowing your true power and capabilities, then this episode is for you. And I hope you enjoy it. Hi, Montelle.
Hi, Jenny.
I can't believe we're doing this.
I
am
know.
so excited to have you here.
Oh, amazing. Thank you so much for that incredible intro as well.
Of
I'm so
course.
excited to have this conversation.
I'm kind of sure a lot of people already know you. But I think there's a lot of things I really want to talk about today. But one of the most important things I think is how you were always super resilient on all the life transitions that you've went through. So I want to start by kind of talking about what was the foundation or the mindset that you kind of worked on for you to be able to go through all these life transitions and still stand strong in who you are?
That is a great question. So, yeah, I guess to give a bit of context, because I'm sure you're speaking about the most recent transitions, I feel like my life has just been a series of transitions from very young, an early age. I've always had to shift and evolve, and I've been, very independent and mature due to childhood experiences, and there's always just an evolution of Montelle. However, most recently, as you know, I've become a wife and then became a mother. But even prior to that, I moved to a whole new city for my now husband. And yeah, so that all happened very quickly within the space of just a couple of years. So this has been the most fundamental transition and transformation in my life to date. And it all happened so quickly. There was a lot to process. So yeah, in terms of how I was able to build the foundation of and the resilience of going through all of these transitions, it really started in my early 20s, where I had that almost light bulb moment that we all have, when we all go from just doing our own thing in the world to then having that awakening to, wow, okay, adulting is real, life is real, and we have to work on our mindset, and we have to really become aware of our core beliefs and behaviors and patterns. And we all have that moment of wanting to better ourselves and wanting to prioritize our self development and improvement, right? So for me, I had that moment in my early 20s. And I believe that was the foundation that set me up for where I am currently today. Because
Mm.
I would always envision, being married by 25 and having all these babies and having this career and things. And it didn't necessarily work out that way because I'm 28 now. But for what I have achieved now, I'm like, wow. To me, it's still mind blowing because I know that it took that foundational work from when I was younger to get here. So, in terms of what that foundational work looked like, for me, the first thing was confidence.
Mm.
And I knew that in order to become the woman that I know I'm called to be, at the time, I didn't know it was going to blossom into what it is now, but I knew that I had a calling on my life and I knew that I was called for more. But at the time, I was I was anxious. I had low self-esteem, low confidence. I spent the majority of my teenage years suffering with really chronic acne and eczema, like all over my face, all over my body. And as you can imagine, going through my teenage years, and that's when you're really, becoming a woman and exploring yourself and learning about beauty. So for me, back then, I was very challenged in the area of confidence. And it took for me to really learn how to embrace confidence and learn what that meant for me. But I already hit rock bottom at that point. So my confidence was at an all time low. And it's like I had this revelation that, okay, for me to become the woman that I'm called to be, I need to work on this. Now, what did that look like? For me, I'm not saying this is going to be for everyone, but for me, it was starting a YouTube channel. And
Mm.
that was the starting point of me developing my confidence and my journey to becoming the woman that I knew I was called to be. So, not to get into all the details of, that journey, but I started this channel with the theme of beauty and lifestyle. And then that transitioned into me taking solo trips and developing my confidence through that and meeting new people. And then it transitioned into self development because along my journeys of traveling and exploring cultures, you become more aware of your upbringing and what you've known to be true. And that opened up the world to me of self improvement and mindfulness and, strengthening your mindset and resilience because prior to that, I was very much in the victimhood and, that victim mentality of why is this happening to me? And bad things always happen to me and I'm always going to be this way, it's just the way I am, all this negative self-talk that we put on ourselves. And it took for me to realize, okay, nobody's coming to save me, not even family. Everyone has their own challenges and lives to live. So I have to, become an adult, pull up my big girl pants and make things happen. So I started this YouTube channel. I, traveled around the world. I really worked on my mindset and resilience. I invested thousands and thousands of pounds into self-improvement and coaching
Mm.
and I followed inspirational women online, very much like yourself now with the podcast. I wish we had this podcast back when I was starting out, but I did a lot of listening to audiobooks and podcasts and things. And now I'm at a stage where I'm still doing all these things and it's truly embedded in who I am as a person. And, we go through the ups and downs of life, but I believe that it's like a muscle, like learning how to be
Mm.
resilient and learning how to, transition and navigate every single life experience that you have is going to be a turning point. It's either going to shape you and challenge you, and you're going to learn from it. So I never see anything as a failure. It's always a redirection and it's always strengthening and building on who you're going to become. So, yeah, the person I am today is
Mm.
based on a series of the little choices that I've made in the
Mhm.
past.
There is a lot to unpack there.
Yeah.
One of the first things that I want to kind of like, I want you to break
Mhm.
down is how did you, what were the steps that that
Mm.
you took to build your self-confidence, and not just like on the outside, like we can just look amazing on the outside but still feel very
Mhm.
insecure on
Yes.
the inside, like seeking validation from
Mhm.
other people instead of from ourselves and what we're doing. What were like for especially this because I know in the audience there's a lot of people that struggle with self
Yeah.
confidence, and I've had this thing coming up more and more and more. How what were the steps that you took from insecure and not feeling good about yourself, starting the YouTube channel to now being very, very secure and grounded in who you are, and no matter what happens in life, you guide yourself.
Yeah, for sure. So the first step is definitely that self-awareness that, like what you said, you can be beautiful on the outside, but what's going on internally? And I spent many years because, I was on YouTube, so I was seeing all these beautiful women do their makeup, and I thought, yeah, I can do that then. So I started doing my makeup really nice, and I was able to cover and mask like my acne and eczema. So on the outside, I looked somewhat beautiful. But I realized internally I hadn't changed. And internally, I still suffered with the low self esteem and confidence issues. So the first step for me was awareness that, okay, this isn't just, external. What's going on internally? How can I beautify my heart? How can I beautify my mind? So I started off with in terms of building my confidence, I started with exposure therapy, I like to call it. I didn't even know that was a thing back then.
It
It
truly
is
is
a
so
definitely a thing.
powerful.
Yeah, I know, right? But I didn't see it as a therapy back then. I just saw it as, okay, this is something I need to do. So to give you an example, I had very bad eczema all over my face, but especially around my mouth. So I could not have a conversation with anybody without like going like this. It was just like, sorry, I haven't done my nails. So apologies everybody watching. But yeah, I used to always cover my mouth, and it was just like a habit for me. It was just I literally couldn't look at anybody in the eye without doing that.
Lack of self
So
expression as well.
exactly.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I used to do that, and everybody would pick up on it and be like, why do you do that? Like, stop doing it. And I was like, I just cannot do it. If not, I could not maintain eye contact with you without doing it. So I was like, okay, I need to develop my confidence. What's the one habit that I need to break? It was that. And bear in mind, I've been doing this for years and years. So for me to break it, it took more than me just saying, okay, I'm going to stop doing it, because as it went as far as I couldn't go to the corner shop without doing it. So I would challenge myself every single day. And I just started small. I'd say, okay, today I'm going to go to the corner shop and I'm going to have a conversation with the shopkeeper without covering my mouth.
Mm.
And I challenge myself like that. And, I'd set out to do it one day and I'd get there and I'd end up doing it. And I'd be like, okay, I'll try again the next day. And it just started like that with small changes. So it started with strangers. So it's like, okay, I'll have a conversation or I'll walk down the street with my head held high. And once I ticked off that, I was like, okay, great. Now I'll move on to people I actually know, like family and friends, and I won't cover my mouth when I'm speaking to them. And I'll try and maintain eye contact for longer than 10 seconds. So it was just little things like that that I would challenge myself to do. And then that would progress to challenging myself to like book a flight and go on a solo trip. And before you know it, I was traveling the world and things like that. I would really encourage myself in that way. So I think being practical is one thing, as well as doing the mindful exercises. So for me, journaling,
Mm.
affirmations, they were really fundamental for me to explore my own mind, especially if you're someone who can overthink quite a lot and can be in your head a lot, which I definitely can. Just having that written out is going to be incredible for you to understand, okay, what are my challenges? What are the barriers? Where do I need to work on? So that was another thing I did, and just immersing myself in new environments with around new people. And I grew up in a very small town, and everybody's mindset was quite small minded. Everyone couldn't see past the city that I grew up in. And I always was quite different in that sense, which is why in my early teens and early 20s, I definitely questioned my identity a lot because I knew that I was made for more. I knew that I wanted to experience more, but I was kind of held back by my environment. So getting out of that environment is the one thing that allowed me to open up my mind to see what is possible. Because if I didn't do that, the relationship, the now marriage that I'm in, it probably wouldn't have happened because I would have been like, oh no, but I'm set in these ways. So it took for me to really explore different things for me to break free from any limiting beliefs that I
Mm.
had and yeah, old mindsets.
Hmm. I think like environment is super,
Mhm.
super important. And I think it's part of that exposure therapy because like same for me, like I moved from small town in
Yeah.
Barcelona, like very small town outskirts to here. And when I moved to London, I literally like exposure therapy as in, like everything that I was
Mhm.
scared of, like a big
Yeah.
city with a lot of people, like way, way more expensive, like big thinking. And I'm like, okay, I either become the environment or the environment is going to literally spit me out, like,
That's
and
it.
I have to like pack my bags and go back to Spain. And I just think that's something that a lot of people do, men and women, is they are waiting to become the person to then put themselves into the environment.
Yes.
And something that my therapist said once is if you're struggling with a lot of PTSD or with a lot of trauma in your life, for example, with past relationships, toxic patterns, like a lot of this stuff, the only way and the fastest way for you to, first of all, build back your self confidence and self worth and overcome this is to literally put yourself into that position.
Mhm.
Because with that, you are going to either grow from it or you're going to retrace back, right?
Yep.
But you can retrain your brain to when you put yourself into an environment to grow with the environment. And I do think that's super important because we were like, oh, I have to become this person to have this. No, you can have this while you're becoming this person because you probably will never get to become 100% the person you want to become because there's always more to that. So I feel like that is something really, really important. And another thing that you said, which I find truly, truly interesting, and I do also practice this myself, is you said that you had to break your bad habits.
Yes.
And I've funny enough, like even before you even before you were uh dating Sam, I think I saw one of your videos. And you talked about goal setting.
Mhm.
And if I'm not mistaken, you talked a lot about habits. And I kind of want to reverse engineer on that on how you achieved the life of your dreams, how you achieved your goals. Because I truly believe that doing vision boards and writing our goals and setting affirmations doesn't do anything to our
Mhm.
brain chemistry if we don't take a look first at the bad habits we need to break and then rebuild from there. Can you explain like how you got yourself from that place, how you set goals, what were the bad habits that you had to break to now being here?
Yes. So I have always been, for as long as I can remember, so that turning point in my early 20s when I knew I wanted to change and I fell in love with personal development. I always saw myself as a big dreamer and a goal setter, right? And for many years, I'd go through the cycle of setting the New Year's resolutions and, wanting to change. And then before you know it, it'd hit March and I'd already fallen off a bit, or, mid year and I'd completely forgot what goals I had set or I haven't achieved them. So I'd feel discouraged. So I went through many years of that same cycle of setting the annual goals and, seeking to achieve them by the end of the year, not getting there, saying, okay, we'll try again next year. And for a good maybe 6, 7 years of my life of doing that, I realized, okay, this isn't working anymore. What are we going to do about it? And it just so happened by chance, I came across a book which was called The 12-Week Year.
Mm.
And that book completely changed my life and just revolutionized my thinking in this area. And it also helped me to understand how my mind works when it comes to goal setting and reinvention. And it made me realize why the yearly goal setting just wasn't working, or the long term goal setting just was not working for me. I am somebody who I'm energized by momentum and feeling the momentum in shorter bursts. So whether it be like a month or something, and just really going at it and working to it. And I'm also someone who likes to operate life in different seasons. So there are seasons where I'm, running towards a goal, going hard, and then the seasons where I like to rest. So it was quite difficult for me to find that balance when I was setting a long-term annual goal, because I'd maybe have a month of momentum and then like 3 months of rest, and there was just no balance.
Mm.
So I picked up this book, and the concept of the book is to transform annualized goal setting into
Mm.
quarterly goal setting. So we've all heard of quarterly goals, right?
Yeah.
Q1, Q2, Q3. And many people do operate that way, especially in business and like the corporate sense. Many operate that way. But there was just something different about this book. There was a different energy behind it. And I truly appreciated how much the book spoke about our mindset, and the how that plays a part.
What was the
So the book is the 12-week year. That's what the book is called. So what you're essentially doing is you're taking a goal that you would love to achieve within 12 months, and you're setting yourself the target of achieving that in just 12 weeks instead.
Mm.
And the book really goes into depth with how you would take this long-term goal, how you would break it down into actionable steps, how you'd systemize the goal, and how building that momentum, it allows you to execute. And by the end of that 12 weeks, you're going to be much further ahead than you would have been if you allowed it to just be an annual goal.
Mm.
So I love this because I'm like, yeah, I love speeding towards goals. I love, short burst of energy, and that really revolutionized my way of seeing my goal setting and transforming my mind. And so I did this, I've done this process many times. The first time I did it was the most revelational for me, because I realized in that, oh, actually, it's not just about achieving the goal, it's about the identity and the mindset. So, although I got to the end of that 12 weeks, I didn't necessarily achieve everything that I had set out, but who I became during the habits I built, just the daily commitment and consistency, that is worth so much more than achieving the goal itself, because that is what I can now continue and take into achieving the next goal. So, I learned so much about myself, which is just showing up, the daily actions. And, we think when we're wanting to achieve a goal, we have to do all these big audacious things, when actually
Mm.
I realize it's the boring, the small, the repetitive things
Mm.
that is going to compound and make the most change. So for me, achieving goals now, I see it as, who do I want to become? How do I want to feel? Rather than the goal itself. And it just makes it more fun. And it's not, making the actual result the end goal for you. It's just who you're becoming throughout.
I just think also there's no such thing. This is gonna ruffle a lot of feathers, and people will be like, "What are you
Hmm.
saying?" But from what I've seen, from what you said, from what I've
Hmm.
seen within myself, from what I've seen with people that I coach and work with, there is no such thing as an end goal,
No.
because you're always moving the
Yeah.
goalpost to, okay, next, next. And we're always in the pursuit of, we think we're on the pursuit of a goal. We think we're on the pursuit of like an income, on the pursuit of a career. But what we are truly in the pursuit of is to become the person that we know in our mind that we can be, because that's what actually fuels our energy and habits to go and attain that goal, because we love who we are becoming
Mhm.
in the process. And I do feel that's why a lot of people, when they hit their goal, let's say 20,000 income goal a month, or talking like in a like, I don't know, doing a TEDx, or having a promotion, whatever that is, people are like, oh, is that it? Like, why don't I just feel
Mhm.
anything? And I do feel it's because they were fixing their eyes in the end goal and in that thing, but they were just not putting the focus on who am I becoming. And then when you achieve that goal, you're just, okay, so I just proved myself that I can become this person. Um, how did you work on creating that new identity, because it's not about reinventing yourself from the old you, because you will just keep reinventing like a broken kind of like piece of you. How did you go about creating that new identity, making your habits stack with the 12 week that you said? Like how was the process? Like walk us through the process where we're like, okay, pen and paper, these are my goals to achieve in 12 weeks. What was going on in within yourself, in your brain? Like what just happened there?
So I believe, I mean, what you said was so spot on about there not being an end goal or end destination. And if we allow ourselves to think like that, then we're going to continue this cycle and repeat this cycle. And when you were speaking, it reminded me a lot of, how athletes will get to like the top of the game and they've been training for this one moment. And then when they have that moment and they get the win and, it's euphoric in that moment. And then after that, you find that a lot of them fall into a depression because it's like, okay, what now? So that is how a lot of us are still seeing our goals, whether it's career, you work your way up to the top of the corporate ladder and then it's like, okay, what now? You lose yourself. Or whether it is in business, you hit a financial goal and you're like, you've been working so hard for that and what now? And from my personal example, one of my huge goals over the years was to hit 100,000 subscribers on YouTube. And this is what I actually used the 12-week-year method for. And when I hit that goal it wasn't 12 weeks, but it was, so it wasn't 3 months, but it was around 6 months. So
What
a
was
lot.
what was the baseline?
What do you mean?
W How many
So I
followers?
had
How many
20,000. Yeah. So from 20,000 to 110,000, I did in around 6 months. So still a huge goal. And it was incredible. And it's something that I wanted for years prior. And when I hit that, I was like, oh my God, this is amazing. And I enjoyed it for a good amount of time. But then after that, it was like, it kind of lost, I lost, the excitement for it. And I was like, okay, it's because I was chasing the destination rather than who I wanted to become or the impact I wanted to create through having this platform. So I believe that we have to, rather than see a destination, we have to think about who we want to be, how we want to feel, and understand that life is always going to evolve, as you rightly said. So for me, it's just now when I'm thinking about my changing into, I wouldn't sort of call it a new identity. It's always an evolution of who we are. I'm always building on previous versions of ourselves. But nowadays, I am more so asking myself, how do I want to feel? And that is what is going to be the driver and the leader for me becoming the evolution, the next version of myself rather than a goal. Because I've learned that, for example, getting married, okay, check. Having a baby, okay, check. But okay, what's next? Rather than that, I just want to feel joy and happiness with who I am in the moment. And a piece of advice I received recently, which was very powerful for me, was, I love how your eyes are like, you love
Yeah,
it. Yeah, I know
I
you
know what's
love this.
coming.
Yes. But yeah, a piece of advice that I received, which was incredible, was to serve the season you're in. And I think when it comes to identity, that's something we need to remember because we can always be looking at somebody else and thinking, oh, I can't wait till I'm achieving that or I'm at that level. But no, actually, serve this season that you're currently in and be the best that you can be right now. And the only competition we have is who we were yesterday, who we were a week ago. So when you're thinking about reinventing or becoming the best version of yourself, it's about reflecting on who you were and who you need to be in this moment now. So I, instead of looking at long-term future goals, yes, you can have them in the back of your mind, but narrow it down a bit. So ask yourself, how do I want to feel today? What habits can I incorporate today with the time I have available, with the lifestyle, with the commitments I currently have? What can I do in this moment right now to challenge myself and to become this best version? So I would always focus on that. And it helped me, especially when you are someone who you may think about long-term goals, and it can scare you, although you have these ambitions, and it can feel slightly overwhelming. So it was just the small shifts and the small daily actions that really supported me with that new identity and reinvention.
How did your new foundation of yourself help you go through um the first months of struggle with your daughter? For the audience that they don't know, Montel had like the cutest, most adorable baby I've ever
Oh.
seen. Honestly, she is amazing. But your daughter went through, had to fight for her life for the first 5 months
She did.
of her life. Can you walk us through the journey and what helped you with like getting yourself through it? What kind of identity shifts, mindset shifts you had to go through and challenge to get yourself on the and your daughter as well on the
Hmm.
other side of it?
Yeah, for sure. So yeah, little context. My daughter, Jemima Rose, was diagnosed with a rare and quite serious heart condition. And we found out about this at our 20-week scan, so prior to having her. So at that point, as you can imagine, it was just a shock. There was a lot of, I wouldn't say fear, but a lot of uncertainty around what the future could look like. And, imagine I'm a first time mom. We're very newly married at this point as well. So there was definitely a lot of emotion, a lot of going on. And the one thing that really grounded me is, of course, my faith. As you know, that is a huge cornerstone to what now shapes my identity and my beliefs. So in that moment, I decided to trust God, and it was a decision. So that's one thing that, even if you're not a person of faith, even if your listeners, they're not grounded in a faith, I would say that the key thing is deciding, and you have to choose hope. You have to choose to be strong, because it's not something that's just going to come in every single day. There were days that, going through the pregnancy, I was very doubtful. I was uncertain. Even, planning a baby shower and wanting to celebrate my baby, I was like, in the back of my mind, I was like, the future's so uncertain, so what could this look like? But I decided, and I chose, actually, I deserve to celebrate my baby. We deserve to be celebrated regardless of the outcome. So in every moment, in every day, I had to decide love. I had to decide hope, and and be strong for myself and my daughter to come. And by the grace of God, Jemima Rose is here, and she's strong, and she's been through multiple surgeries. She's had her challenges. And to answer your question, how did my new identity and mindset really support with that and her journey? It's just knowing that there's a testimony in everything, there's a reason for everything, whether we like the outcome or not. We have to know that it's being used for a greater purpose. So that's what really grounded me. And then you have, the practical side of things. So even if it's just, really prioritizing myself as much as possible, even though, yes, I'm now a mother, and yes, I have to show up for my baby, but she's only going to get the best of me if I'm pouring into myself as well. So honestly speaking, there were times where it wasn't easy, but the same as I think I mentioned earlier, like, the brain is a muscle, our mind is a muscle. We have to work on strengthening it. So it took for me every day deciding first when I woke up, okay, this is how I'm going to be. I'm going to choose strength today. I'm going to choose to show up and be the best representation as a mother for my daughter. I'm going to prioritize journaling if that's what I needed that day. I'm going to go for a walk if that's what I needed that day. And then I'm going to show up for her. And if it means I have to have an open conversation with those around me and tell them how I'm feeling, I'm going to do that as well. So yeah, I guess that is what I did there.
I think a topic that we actually are starting to talk more and more about, which I'm really, really grateful for, is mental health
Mhm.
and the ability of validating our own struggle and how we're feeling. Um, how did you make sure that you were grounded through that life circumstance? And because for what you're saying, and obviously I know you, but for what you're saying is you operated as a victor instead of as a victim, which is has a huge domino effect on everything that we do in life. How did you make sure that every single day and at every single moment that, because I know you guys really struggle with it, but like when doctors was like, oh yeah, we're gonna do an open heart surgery, and she was like, I don't know, she was like
9 days old.
9 days old.
Yes.
Like, I am not a mom,
Mhm.
but I know that if like that was me, I would have freaked out. But that's also why I want to bring you the podcast, because your resilience and your groundness and your victory mindset throughout the whole process, it is something that I truly, truly, truly admire. And I know there's a process behind it all. So how did you make sure that you were not your circumstance, you were not a victim of your circumstance, but like you were a victor and like you could always find a way through everything?
Yeah. I believe it did start from the groundwork and the foundational work I did going through my teenagers when I had that revelation that I'm not a victim. And going through, just to give you a bit of a backstory, not too long, but on my childhood. So I grew up not having the best relationship with my mum at the time. So I lived with different family members. I was quite passed around to different people. So I grew up very much feeling like a victim, very much feeling abandoned, and very much feeling like I didn't have a voice or anyone to go to. So that's really what triggered my victimhood in my early years when I had that revelation that, okay, nobody's coming to save me and I have to be the influence for myself and my life, that's when I started doing the work to step into more of a leadership role. And I use the word leadership, which sounds like a very big word. And there may be listeners thinking, well, I don't see myself as a leader and things. But, you have to see yourself as a leader of your own life and as an influential voice to those. And it doesn't mean you have to have a big platform or you have to be online. But even if you're just influencing your family or influencing the people around you, you have to seek that. And I'm sure your listeners are very much into personal development and
Mm-hmm.
reinventing themselves and, having influence. So the first step is knowing that you have an influence, your story has a reason. And I used to always tell myself after I went through my turning point and I started to build on my confidence, I would just tell myself, my story has a purpose and I don't know what it is now, but every single challenge I go through, it's to serve somebody else. It's eventually I'm going to write a book of my life and, it's going to be the best book because there's so much going on in there. So I kind of carried that mindset throughout life to this day. I know that there's purpose in what I'm going through. That's what allows me to show up. I know that I'm not a victim because, we think about our own journey. There was somebody else who went before us who told their story in such a compelling way that inspired us to break free from ourselves. So I truly believe that we're all interlinked in a way and that whatever we go through, it's to inspire the next person, it's to inspire the next generation. So with my daughter, she already has such a powerful story at just 5 months old. And I know she's already inspired and impacted so many people. So when I think about who I want her to become, because I see a smaller version of myself, right? So I think about who I want her to become, and I know that that's going to take me to,
Go
set the
first.
example and
Yeah.
go first. Yeah. So that's what encourages me to go on, to know that there's a greater purpose and I'm just playing a part in it. I mean, I know that culture really prioritizes being an individual and, being small, like keeping to yourself and things. But
Mhm.
I truly believe in the power of community and having a wider impact. So that is allows me to overlook the days where I may not want to show up or I want to be a victim again because I've been through a lot. Like I deserve to, complain about everything, but who is that really serving?
I honestly get super inspired from
Mm.
you and your story because it truly is a testament that you can truly change your life if you truly want to. You've also mentioned your childhood and feeling abandoned and all these things that I'm sure a lot of people can relate with. And just before we turn on the camera and start recording, um, you like I asked you about a milestone that like impacted your life, and you mentioned that you were in a toxic relationship because I want to make sure that people know that obviously people now see you happily married with an amazing daughter and this very strong version, secure version of you. But like, I want to make sure that they also see the behind the scenes of what happened there and how you got yourself here, because it's not that you just in the blink of an eye just put yourself into this position. Um, How was the process of healing the
Mm.
inner child, healing the unhealthy attachments and the toxic relationship from then knowing who you wanted to attract, who you wanted to be your future husband, your partner in life? Can you walk us through that transition, what you did, how you became the person that now is happily
Mm.
married?
Yeah, I think when I'm thinking about it, it was probably a series of unfortunate experiences that I went through that taught me what I didn't want before I realized what I did want. So I'm very blessed. I mean, when I tell people the story of what happened, they're like, how can you say you're blessed for going through this traumatic and toxic relationship? But I'm glad that I went through that at a young age because it matured me so quickly when it came to relationships. And I realized, okay, that is definitely what I don't want. So this was when I was still very much suffering from my low self esteem and low confidence. That's how I fell into this relationship. And I stayed for a lot longer than I should have done. It was, toxic and it ended very abruptly. And, it felt like at the time my first kind of heartbreak. But I also knew that this is the turning point where I'm not doing that again. I'm not going back there. So from that relationship, it took many years for me to really heal. I mean, I didn't get into any relationship after that, and I just focused on myself and what I wanted and the values that I wanted from
Oh my
my
gosh, I have
future
to
partner.
sneeze. Oh
Sorry.
my oh my god, I'm so sorry.
No, it's
I have to sneeze so bad. Okay, it's gone. It's
okay.
gone. It's gone. Oh my gosh, I'm so sorry. Like, it's going.
No problem.
Oh my
Oh
gosh.
gosh.
Okay. Okay. Good. Good. Okay.
Are
Oh
you
gosh.
all good?
Okay. Yeah,
Ready
we're
to
good. We're good. We're good.
ready?
Yeah. Yeah.
Cool.
Yeah.
Yeah, so it took a process, a series of years for me to reflect on what had happened in that relationship and understand my own values, what I'm seeking in a new partner. And yeah, through that singleness, that's where I really started to understand myself. Because I think that's the key thing as well. You have to really understand yourself before you get into a relationship. So that really helped me in those years. Those were my formative years of me, just doing what I want to do, solo traveling, meeting new people, exploring new cultures. And through that, I yeah, slowly started to refine myself. And even meeting my now husband, that also took a process of refinement. And it wasn't easy. It wasn't just we got into this relationship and everything was incredible. This relationship actually exposed me to many areas that hadn't healed. And still to this day, I'm working on healing. So when I got with Sam, one of the first things I did was get myself in therapy. And that was after just our second date. I realized, wow, I need to get into therapy because there are parts of me that are still not healed and I need to work through if I want this relationship to work. And it's almost like when you get into a relationship with the one, you kind of just know that this is serious. So from a few dates with Sam, I knew that, okay, this is going to be serious. So if I want this to be a long term sustainable relationship, I have to work on this, this, and this. So I began doing that. And to this day, we've been together now 3 years. It's always been a process of refinement and communication and having patience. Like he's very patient with me. I'm patient with him. So yeah, it's still going through that now. So I don't want anyone to feel like, okay, I'm just gonna have this light bulb moment and then from that point everything's gonna change immediately. It's still going to be a process throughout. And I'm excited for this new chapter in life now. I've added the layer of motherhood as well because I know that's going to bring many challenges and revelations and it's going to be another evolution. So I see it as we're constantly evolving. And going back to the piece of advice that I mentioned is serving the season that you're in as well. I think that's just so key to always remember and recognize. So if anyone right now is single, just really enjoy that, explore. Some of my best friends are still single and they're looking at me like, oh, but you're married and you have a baby now. I'm like, please enjoy this season you're in because it's going to be so important for when you transition into the next phase of life.
Mm-hmm. Not to go deep into relationships, but I do think this is an important part of the transformation as well. Um, Now you know you didn't before, but I know that there's a lot of people that, and this is especially for women. Like I see a lot of women doing this, myself included in the past. But when do you know that it's time to leave someone? Um, and how do you get yourself from a place of, I really need to leave this, I really need to end this, or else it just gonna end me in a way?
Hmm. So the first thing is I'm really big on feeling and I'm very hypersensitive. So I'm sensitive to different energies and emotions, my own especially, which sometimes is a great thing and it's a great trait to have, but then other times it can be a bit of a hindrance. However, in terms of relationship, I truly believe you want to ask yourself the question, or yeah, ask yourself the question, when I think about my future with this person, how does it make me feel? And then maybe take a pause and feel. If you get that gut response that this isn't going to be right, there's something just not feeling good, that's an indication, okay, it's either from this point we need to address this head on and figure out why I'm feeling this way, or maybe you already know it's not going to work out. So I'm big on thinking about the long-term vision, the long-term goal. And if you've had this conversation with the partner and what has their response been to that. So if you're at a space where maybe, and I mean, not for everyone, like for me, the relationship was very toxic and it was outwardly toxic. So I knew I had to leave. But for some people, it could be just, the inner feelings that you have where the relationship could be great on the outside, but how am I feeling internally? And that sometimes is more difficult to address. So I'd say that really feeling this one out, because our head can tell us one thing and our brain wants us to make it work, wants us to believe that this is right. But if you're always going to have that same gut reaction and emotion, eventually that will start to manifest on the outside as well, I believe. So I would say it's about checking in with yourself first and not through the lens of how this person may be feeling or how your partner, may be showing up right now. It's through the lens of what you personally want for yourself. So I believe if you're dating, if you're single and you're with someone and having this, then address it sooner rather than later.
I also feel like your body tells you.
Yeah.
Like when I was in a very toxic relationship, I every day or every week something new was hurting.
Yeah.
As in honestly hurting. And I was just like, I need to go to hospital. Like I'm sick. What's wrong with me? And then I eliminated that stressor, that part,
Mm-hmm.
and my body was changed, not fully healed, but changed overnight. And then I realized, like, once I was out of it, I was like, okay, hold on a minute. The way I was feeling is the exact same way I was feeling at home when I was a kid,
Wow.
when my dad was in and out, when my parents divorced. I mean, I'm not going to disclose for privacy's sake, but my parents divorced was very chaotic. But I would say it was more chaotic before their divorce than
Mm.
after the divorce, because like they were, my dad was not at home, my mom was an emotional wreck, and I was just like kind of like the kid just sitting there and being like, okay, this doesn't feel good. And especially being adopted, I just kind of feel like I was just put into a household that was already
Wow.
very, very chaotic, coming from a very chaotic, like my biological mom had 10 kids.
Wow.
And then I realized like um she never kind of like hold me, like
Mm.
my brother took care of me when he was 12 and I was like just a newborn. And I kind of had like, I kind of feel like that feeling lingered, and then that feeling lingered into my childhood. And it's what you said, like when the relationship ended, I had the same feeling, or I realized I always had the same feeling as if when I was at home.
Yeah. No worries.
Okay, yeah, 5 minutes and we close it in.
Okay.
So
Yeah.
we're gonna head
No
into a
worries.
closing. Okay, good. Yeah, yeah. So I feel like that feeling was the same one that I was feeling when I was with my partner at the time. And I think just dropping into your body and truly feeling, not putting your emotions aside, just feeling, it can tell you a lot around if you are in the right mind space and if that person is going to be with you for the long haul. I have one question though, that it's very interesting in today's age, but do you think you mentioned the one, and some people say the one doesn't exist, you just meet someone and make it the one or make it right. Do you think the one, I mean you found it, right? But do you think the one actually exists?
No. No. I don't think the one exists. I believe there are many versions of the one we could find. And I believe it's a choice that we have to make the person we have found become the one. And the reason I say this is because if we're constantly questioning the one, we could get into a very happy relationship, a marriage, and in the back of our minds, we're always thinking, oh, but is this the one? Maybe I could have found the one. Or,
Mm.
you go traveling somewhere, you see someone, oh, is that the one? Like, we're always going to be asking about this one. So I believe that there are many people that we are, suitable with, we are aligned with, and we can build a very sustainable, happy future with. But it can't just be one person, but we make it our one. And we work together to create our version of oneness within our relationship. So, yeah, I have definitely pondered on this quite a lot about finding the one, but I just believe that it is what we make it. It's a choice to love someone. It's a choice to commit to someone. It's a choice to build with someone. And now that I'm with Sam and I'm in our relationship, every single day is a reminder and a choice that we are choosing to be with each other, we're choosing to build with each other, and to not have to seek outside of that anymore to find the one that we're all looking for, because it just plays into this whole perfectionism of what life needs to be. And we always have to be on the right path. We can create that path for ourselves.
And honestly, when people say like, "Oh yeah, the right path," you choose. I don't believe there's such thing. I do believe you choose a path and you make it right.
That's it. Yeah.
Like, especially like me being about to be 29, like heading into my 30s, getting into this. Oh my gosh, like 30s, I
30s are
am
the best
like,
years.
yeah. And I'm like, and
Yeah.
my friend's like, Jenny, you still have to turn 29 because
Yeah.
my birthday is like in literally 20, like 18 days from now, I
Wow.
think. But it's like, I'm always like kind of like scared of, am I making the right decisions in my life? Even starting the podcast was like, is this a right decision to make? Because I'm not fully there yet. But now, in like, it's been like a year now since we've been recording, and 4 months, I think, since we launched. And now I see that it's helping people. It's like, there's no such thing as the right decision. You make a decision and you make it right. There's no such thing as your dream career. You pick a career and you make it your dream career. Like, you have, it's what you said, is a choice. You have the power and the ability to pick something and transform it into, you can transform into your life purpose,
Yeah.
and you have the choice and that power and that ability. What would you say to people that are still looking for their thing or for their purpose and they're
Mhm.
kind of like in the middle? What would you say to them?
Yeah, well, just off the back of what you've just said, it kind of falls back into that final destination mentality, right?
Mm.
It's like we're always seeking for that end goal, whether it be in our career, relationships, we're looking for the one because we want it to align with the final destination or whatever. So I would say, like what you've done with this podcast, it was an incredible decision, but in the back of your mind, you may be second guessing, is it the right move to make? And I truly believe that you take the step and the path will present itself at all times and nothing is ever wasted. And as humans, we're called to create. As, a Christian, myself, it's said in the Bible that we are called to create. We are co-creators. So everything we're doing is, planting seeds and it's bringing us closer to our where it is that we're meant to be, to our purpose. So if you're wanting to start something, whether it be a podcast, whether it be a YouTube channel, a business, if you wanted to get into a different career field, start a relationship, as we've said, we create the path ourselves. And taking a step forward is always going to get us closer to who we're truly called to be. And know that it's going to come with redirection. It's going to come with, winds and bends throughout because no road is perfectly straight. So we have to just take that first step. I know it sounds very simple, very basic, but it's truly how I've lived my life. I've took the step, and if I have to take a left, I have to take a right, I'm willing to go with that flow. But we can't pressurize ourselves to always seek the perfect end result.
I do believe that is so true. Just one final thing to just like close this off. How do you get yourself unstuck whenever you feel trapped into your own mind, or you just feel stuck in your career? Because you've done a lot of career lips. Like, I think one of the first videos that I saw of you was one where you said you were manifesting this job for so long and then you got it, and then you were manifesting your career, your 100K subscribers, and then you got it. But before then you were kind of like in the middle, in the messy middle, which I do think that's where all breakthroughs come from,
Mhm.
not from like the straight line or the knowing certainty path that we take. How to get yourself from a place of, I am stuck, from to a place of, I'm gonna get myself unstuck and take massive action and build some momentum? How do you go through that process?
Mhm. Okay, so I'll keep it short and sweet
Hmm.
in three key points. The first point is to move. So that's to physically move and to mentally move as well. And I know people don't like to hear this, but honestly, exercise, and it doesn't have to be very intense, but just getting yourself out of your emotion, out of your head. I'm someone who I can be in my head constantly. So I have to physically move myself, go for a walk, go for a run, do something to shift my energy. And it can feel like, oh, well, that's only going to work for that moment. But no, over the space of time, it will continue to work. And it's just like a small win you can give yourself. And even if it's not fitness that you're stuck in, it could be career or a completely different area of life. Just moving, just, you know, moving it, shifting your energy,
Mm.
that's really going to help. Again, with the mental movement, it's about journaling your thoughts. We spoke about that quite a lot earlier. So just really writing down how it is you're feeling and your emotions. So that's the first step. The second thing I'd say is accountability. So every single goal I've achieved is because somebody else has held me accountable. If I left it to myself, I wouldn't do anything. I'm too soft on myself. But when I know other people are holding me accountable, and for me, I like to go public. So when I wanted to hit 100,000 subscribers, I just said, I'm going to tell my audience this is what I want to do. I had 20,000 subscribers at the time. And I was like, you know what? I have this goal to hit 100,000 in 6 months. And my audience held me accountable for that. And
Mm.
they're the reason I continue to show up, because I was like, I don't want to embarrass myself, right? So I'm going to keep showing up. And it became a really healthy way of competing against myself and showing up for myself and proving that I can do it. That's not going to work for everyone, but even if you just have a friend or somebody else who understands the journey you're on, understanding what your goals are, they're not going to be too soft on you. They're going to, challenge you. That's really going to help for you to get out of your head as well. And then the third thing I'd say is really the small daily continuous action. So if you want to get yourself unstuck, think about, okay, what do I want to achieve? How can I break that down into small daily steps rather than the big explosive
Mm.
action that I need to take? Because eventually you will get there. And on a day to day, it's not going to feel like you're making much progress. When you look back in 3, 6, a year's time, you're going to be so much further than you would have been if you're just thinking about the massive impact you need to create whilst you're still in that stuck freeze mode. So it's just slowly getting yourself out of that, being softer on yourself. And soft productivity is something that I'm definitely exploring and I want to speak more about as well on my own platforms, because I think that's really going to be the key for success, especially as women who are transitioning into, new seasons of life. I think we still want to be productive. We still need to create impact, but how we do it is going to look different for the season that we're in.
Spot on. I think that's a great way to close this episode. Thank you so much for
Thank
making the
you.
time, being here with us, and sharing all the amazing gifts that you have. And probably this will not be the last
Yes.
conversation we will have. Thank you so much for being here.
Thank you so much, Jenny.
Hi guys, it's your host here, Jenny Core. If you made it this far, I hope that this episode has helped you heal, grow, expand in some way. It would mean the world if you can subscribe, like, and comment, because it's gonna help the podcast grow massively. Your support means the world to me and to my team, and we're just gonna bring you better content, bigger guests. So please just support the podcast if you can, and if you think this is gonna help someone, please share it with them. I'll see you next Thursday.